Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we are going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question.
Oh, do you? Oh, gosh.
Yes. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good. The last week is... so when this episode goes out, I will have already been back to work like all you normies. But as of this recording, it is very close to the end of my big, long 3.5 week break.
Yeah.
It's been so nice, but it's just flown by.
Right, yeah.
I've gotten a lot done, a lot done. But before the break started, I went and I wrote out a list of stuff I wanted to get done during this break, and I've gotten none of it done. I've done all sorts of other stuff, but so I mentioned it last week, but we started our actual play podcast. Now the podcast isn't out; it won't be out for some time, but we recorded a big long session. I've separated it into the first 6 episodes. I'm going to be editing it over the next couple months, and then I started another podcast with our friend Steve.
Right. Again,
that probably won't see the light of day for some time.
Yeah.
Because the episodes have ended up so incredibly long. Should I say what that is, or?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Because, it's only going to be so many people who know what it is.
I guess, yeah. So our patrons, I already mentioned this too in our bonus episode in December.
Right.
But there was an old 90s, in 1995, there was a thriller drama suspense TV show on UPN. So just a very, not the most popular network, but
sure.
It was a thriller suspense TV show on UPN starring Bruce Greenwood called Nowhere Man. Mm-hmm. The premise behind it was that Bruce Greenwood plays Thomas Vale, a photojournalist who he took a photo of a public execution in Guatemala or something like that. That's being watched over by a bunch of army men. And so he took a photo, and it's part of this big exhibit he's doing. And for reasons that have yet to be established, some sort of shadowy organization has erased him as a result of him taking this photograph. And I guess their motivation is to get the photograph or destroy the photograph. I'm not entirely sure. But he is on the run. He's running from this, whatever this organization is. He's trying to get his life back, trying to find out why people are after him, and so on. So we started a podcast on this, about this show.
Uh-huh.
And the episodes themselves, the first episode is a bit longer than the rest, but the episodes are, normal, hour long with commercials episodes. And we've made 3 episodes of this so far, and each one has been about 4 hours because there's a lot for us to talk about.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. And our thoughts on the show, although I do like the show, I watched it back when it was on. I showed it to Steve, showed him the first half of it, maybe the first half of the show. It only had 1 season, but I showed the first half of the season to Steve a long, long time ago. And he doesn't really remember much of it, but I really like it. He has a much more critical viewpoint than I do.
Sure.
That being said, we both point out a lot of good things and a lot of bad things as we go through this. So I don't think this podcast is going to have an audience when it comes out.
Sure.
This was not the most popular show. Like I said, it only had 1 season, and it's you can't even buy DVDs for it. You can watch it on YouTube, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think anybody is going to be like, oh man, my favorite TV show, Nowhere Man. I'm hoping that maybe some people that listen to us would be interested in listening to this and watching the show along with it.
Yeah.
But then the episodes are going to be so long, even with edits, they're going to be really long.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And if you guys enjoy listening to Gabe talk, this would be a good way to do it. And then our friend Steve he has some marvelous discussions.
Yes. I'm the one, I criticize more of oh, that was a weird line reading, or, where's the scene where they explain this that happened between these two things, or whatever. Steve is well, the structure of this episode is the first act of a play, and so on and so on. So he's more about the writing. Sure. I have some criticism about the writing too, but my criticisms and praises as well are more about the minute to minute, did you see that look on his face? Or why did that hotel room have a chandelier? Stuff like that. So,
I mean, like Steve is basically a professional editor at this point. Yeah. So like, he's like, he kind of dives into it that way.
Right. So Steve has been telling me like, whenever this does go out, don't try to describe it as, oh, it's like a review or whatever. Instead, describe it as like it is a deep dive into this TV show because again, 4 hours per episode.
Yeah, the episodes are only an hour each, so
yeah,
they go into it for 4 hours.
My hope was to record it in such a way that it doesn't need a lot of editing, but like the first few episodes especially, because like Steve's never podcasted before.
Sure.
So the first few episodes are definitely going to need some editing, but anyway, we'll see. And then in addition to that podcast, you and I have been meaning to, we haven't been able to actually find the time to, been meaning to make a similar but not as long-winded podcast about the 90s cartoon Mighty Max.
Yeah, I have a feeling those will be much, much shorter episodes.
Much shorter, yeah.
Because I mean, like there's a lot that happens in the show, like because like it's just such a small amount of time. It's like they're 20-minute episodes, standard cartoon length or whatever. But they throw a lot in there and they kind of get things moving pretty quickly because there's not a lot of depth to it.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It's fun. It's definitely very fun. And one thing, because I did watch the first couple episodes of that and like take notes on them. One thing that I noticed is that compared to Nowhere Man, Mighty Max is like a very fast-paced show, and there's constantly something happening on screen.
Yeah.
In Nowhere Man, 30% of every episode is Bruce Greenwood like staring 45 degrees from the camera with a bewildered look on his face. Whereas in Mighty Max, I'm constantly having to pause it, go back, watch it again, pause it, go back, watch it again, so that I can write down just what happened.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, whenever we get to that, we haven't even recorded the first episode of that.
No.
So listeners, don't hold your breath on that one, but someday we'll get you out some more good stuff.
Oh, we're gonna do it.
Sure,
it's gonna happen.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much I think that's the gist of what's been going on for the last little bit.
Sure.
So Jeff, do you want to go ahead and get into this episode here?
Sure.
Cool. All right. I want you to imagine that you have you've noticed that your vision is not quite as good as it used to be.
I mean, yeah.
You've noticed that you don't wear contacts or anything, do you?
No.
Okay. No. I used to wear, for our listeners, Jeff already knows this, I used to wear glasses, but I got laser eye surgery a few years ago. So now I can shoot lasers anytime I want. It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Sometimes he doesn't even warn me. I just have to duck.
Exactly. So anyway, you notice that especially like your vision at night isn't as good as it used to be. Like that's the problem I have. Is especially after the surgery, like I'm not able to see in the dark as well as I used to. But anyway, so you schedule an appointment with an eye doctor, your old eye doctor, retired or something. So you make an appointment, you go in, they have you fill out a bunch of paperwork. For some reason, you have to fill in like your net worth and and how much money you tend to carry on your person at the time.
How much of which is gold?
Exactly. It's real weird. So anyway, you get in. The receptionist is a little bit on the bigger side, shall we say?
Okay.
Bit of a tan, But you get into the office and you sit down. You wait for the doctor to come around. And when the doctor comes around, you realize that you think that the doctor might be related to the receptionist because they both have similar
build,
similar carriage, I suppose, similar complexion. And so the doctor, leans down and has you look through one of those things, or they ask you if is number 1 or number 2 better. And of course you have that crushing indecision where you're like, maybe number 1. Wait, well, is it too late to say number 2? But number 1 was pretty good too. Neither of them were perfect. But so, after a while, after what feels like forever, you've made a bunch of dexterity saving throws, you made a bunch of constitution saving throws, and eventually you're all set. The doctor reaches up to a big pile of gold, grabs a pair of glasses from the top, hands them to you, and says, wear these at night. And as you leave and you realize that that was probably like a 12th level encounter right there, it occurs to you where you just were. That wasn't just an ordinary optometrist's office, Jeff.
No.
Do you know where that was?
No, where was it?
That was the Dragon's Hoard Optometry.
The Dragon's Horde and Optometry.
Exactly. I should have mentioned the doctor was about 30 feet tall.
Oh, dang it.
And every time he spoke, fire shot
well,
out of his
I didn't
mouth.
notice because my eyes are just, they're
Exactly.
they're starting to go.
It's yeah. So anyway, today's item is submitted by Tim D via email. A couple weeks ago, he submitted the first watch. I believe.
Yep.
This is another item that is fairly simple, but I think we can get some fun discussion out of it.
Yep.
And this is the Eye of the Past. This is a rare, wondrous item, and it requires attunement by a rogue, ranger, or bard.
Cool.
And this item shows you what things look like through a different eye. They are goggles that grant dark vision and cause footprints to glow that were created in the last 10 minutes.
Ooh.
So again, pretty simple. Gives you dark vision, which lets you see in the dark. I think, generally speaking, dark vision, I think, is up to 60 feet. This doesn't specify.
Right,
but I would say 60 feet. And then the bonus effect that you can see footprints from the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, which is actually really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It is attuned by, rangers and rogues, tracking things.
People, yeah.
Tracking things in the dark and trying to find, it'd be a good way to find secret passageways, because if you can see footprints leading into like a wall, you're like, oh, there might be a secret door there.
Yeah.
So yeah, the flavor text for this shows you what things look at through a different eye.
Yeah.
So I like to maybe think so that like the way that you see the footprints isn't so much that it's just like, there's a glowing footprint right there.
Sure.
Is you're kind of seeing maybe like an after image in a way.
Okay.
Or maybe you see it through that person's eyes.
Ooh, I like that.
So like what you're looking through these goggles and you're kind of seeing the footfalls through that person's eyes. So like you're seeing that person as they're looking ahead of themselves walking.
Yeah.
And so like you can kind of see where they're going, and I don't know, like it's just kind of like a sort of like an eerie feeling that that the character would get. It's not just like, I can see glowing things. It's like you're getting this weird like extra sensory feeling.
Sure.
I guess it's in a similar way to like how people can look through their familiars or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit different, a little less connection, less like direct connection, more just like this odd feeling.
Sure. I think there's a lot of cool ways to flavor this. And the way I would read it is it says that it causes footprints to glow. Not that you can see them, but that they glow. So I like to think of it going again with what it looks like through a different eye. Maybe you put this like lens on your eye, and your eye now it looks kind of like an animal's eye in that it reflects light really well. Like a cat, you like shine a light and like the cat's eyes are like glowing.
Yeah. And
then maybe it's that light that shines onto footprints. And so they physically glow so people around you can see them too.
Oh, interesting.
Or something, I'm sure different DMs are going to read that different ways, but I think that's a cool way to read it. Yeah, so this is a pretty simple item, but I like it. I think that that simplicity gives you more freedom for flavor.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot of cool stuff to do with it.
I like it a lot for just I like it a lot for like rangers, for tracking and stuff like that, because like tracking is like one of the things that a ranger is supposed to be good at, but like in 5th edition, tracking is like, I don't know, there's a few things that they get. Like you could just use your wisdom or your survival skill to do some tracking.
Yeah.
You still have to like find the tracks themselves, and then you can track them. So like this would negate that. As long as they're 10 minutes away, you can be like, oh, okay, there's some tracks there.
Yeah.
And you can kind of follow along.
I just remember this is very similar to an item in the Adventure Zone. One of the characters gets it's called the Lens of Straight Creepin'. And in that, it lets you see footprints that have like within the last some period of time you can see footprints. So, so that is something that made me think of.
Yeah. And something that gives you dark vision is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like just being able to give somebody who doesn't have dark vision would be very useful.
So cool item. Thank you very much, Tim. Once again, that was the Eye of the Past. So Jeff, if anybody wanted to submit Dragon's Horde items to us, or if they had questions they wanted us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
There you go. And before we go any further, we have a giveaway today. As usual, we're giving away a copy of Chapel on the Cliffs, courtesy of Goblinstone. Goblinstone is a group of creators located in the UK, I believe, and they are creating great adventures. So they have given us this one to give away to our listeners every week. So, Jeff, this week, who is our Chapel on the Cliffs winner?
Our winner today is MC.
Whoa, winner.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Yes, congratulations, MC. You should be getting that in your email in the next few days. If you don't, let us know, and we'll make sure you get that to us. And be sure to let Goblinstone know what you think so they can continue to make great products.
Yep.
And Jeff, if anybody wanted to enter this drawing, how would they do that?
Well, they can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with the subject line Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yes, and then whatever you want in the body of that email, kind words,
Yeah.
Whatever. Put your favorite recipe. We'll take those too.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Maybe someday we'll have another episode of Dinner Party Conflict, and we can feature some recipes that have been submitted. But
yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, So Chapel on the Cliffs is a great adventure. Goblinstone is a great creator. Congratulations, Matthew. I also want to tell everybody that this episode is brought to you by our Patreon. We have lots of great patrons that have donated to us over the months. We've got some cool rewards on there, and you can check those out at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. We've got outtakes for our listeners. We've got I do a Patreon update every few weeks. I haven't done one of those in a very long time. I really need to do that. I'm going to try to do that tonight before I go to bed. We have a monthly bonus podcast for our $5 patrons as well, called InterPatronConflict, where we talk about various topics. We have a monthly fantasy fiction that I write for everybody, with a monthly Roll20 game among our top tier patrons. Also, if you're a top tier patron, I will write about your character for the fantasy fiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got some cool rewards, and we've got some great patrons. So check those out at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. And if anything looks good, maybe think about donating. $1 a month is, even a little bit like that, it helps. And you can donate more if you want, but every little bit helps. And hey, if you can't donate, tell a friend.
Yep.
Tell a friend, leave us a review. The fact that you're listening is great.
Yeah, just keep listening.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then also, I just want to direct everybody to Crit Academy. It's a great podcast. Justin, Ian, and Brandon create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. Also, D&D Character Lab is a great podcast that you should listen to. Garen and Dan, they make characters and then pit them against each other to determine whose is better. Also, there is a new podcast on the Crit Nation Fellowship, and that is Brute Force and Ignorance.
Ooh.
I actually have not listened to them yet, I'm afraid. I just found out about them recently, and I usually do most of my podcast listening at work, which I haven't been to in quite a while.
Yeah.
So
you're out of practice, Gabe.
I am out of practice. I am. So I'm definitely going to probably listen to their entire catalog by this time next week. So,
Sure.
So yeah, Brute Force and Ignorance is a new podcast on the Crit Nation Fellowship. So check them out as well. Check out all of us. And Jeff, you want to get into this episode? Get into some questions?
Sure, yeah. Okay, our first question comes from Gabe.
Who's that guy?
On the podcast.
He sounds attractive.
He sounds devilishly handsome.
Yeah. Well, so should I explain this one first?
Yeah, go ahead.
So before we get to what the question is, actually, I got into a Facebook, let's call it a discussion recently. And I mean, I get into a lot of arguments online. This actually, I don't think was really much of an argument. I don't really think there was too much arguing going on, but there were some conflicting opinions.
Sure. It was a disagreement, but yeah.
And I thought it would be interesting to talk about and see what sort of stuff. I don't want to bring up the person that inspired this, because it was about something that they did that possibly was bad, and so I don't want to I don't want to put somebody on blast about some of their bad habits. So instead, the question I'm bringing in today is, should you leave feedback when leaving a gaming group? And I guess let me try to explain what caused all this. So I'm in a Facebook group, and one of the members was saying that he was running a game and a bunch of people left the group kind of like possibly out of nowhere, possibly in response to something that he was doing. So the initial question that this particular DM was asking was, the question boiled down to, is it unreasonable for players to leave a group because of a disagreement that they have between themselves and you and how the game should be run? So like, is it unreasonable for players to leave a group without, I don't know, like just on their own? I guess I don't really know how to answer that, how to word that question without sounding biased, because my emphatic response was like, dude, players can leave your group for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah. You know? They're not contractually obligated.
Exactly. And then, so like there was a bit of discussion between me and the question asker, and then some other people got in on both sides. So I guess what I was trying to unpack from this question was like, is the DM trying to decide if it was himself that made a bad decision that caused the players to leave?
Sure.
Or was it that the players were just bad players and they were wrong for leaving because they didn't like his DMing style or whatever? I don't know. Whatever the case, before we really get into what this discussion is going to be about, I just want to say, like, if players leave your group for whatever reason, doesn't matter if it's because they disagree with you, doesn't matter if it's because their schedule's too busy, doesn't matter if it's because they just don't want to be in a game anymore, or they don't want to be in your game anymore. It doesn't matter. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody should have to keep going to a game they don't like.
All right.
And I guess the question I'm trying to get into here is, do you think, Jeff, that if you are leaving a group, whether it is because the DM did something you don't agree with or not, are you as the DM entitled to an explanation?
No. I don't think you're entitled to an explanation. It'd be nice to get an explanation. That way you can get feedback and learn from your mistakes, possibly.
Sure.
As a player, I know if I like left a group because of disagreement with the DM or I didn't like their style or something like that, I'm not the kind of person who would give out the feedback like on my own. Like if I was approached and asked, like if they like emailed me later, I might type something out, be like, hey, yeah, okay, it was this or maybe this or that.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna take the time and give feedback. And that's my own, like, I don't like confrontation. I don't like social awkwardness.
Oh my goodness. Same here.
Like,
Same here.
I don't want to bring it up and like, and I guess it depends on who the person is too or something like if for some reason Gabe like stopped being the great DM that he is, and like
well, that's up for debate.
But I mean, like if there was just something that Gabe did in a game that I was just like, I can't play this game anymore, like it'd be tough for me to give you the feedback because you're my friend. But yeah, maybe but I know if he asked me, I'd be like, well, okay, it was this thing.
Yeah.
Just like a random group or something like that, I would just ghost them. I would just be like, no, I'm gone. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time on people I don't know that well.
Right.
I was just, like if I was just going into a game because I wanted to play because like that was the only option I had to play D&D. Like, and I like left because I didn't agree with that DM. I wouldn't talk to them. And like, that's, think of that how you will. Like, that's kind of seems like a jerk move.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't think as a DM you are entitled to an explanation.
Right.
But you have the right to ask.
Well, yeah. And I don't really want to spend too much time dumping on the DM that asked this question.
Right.
But like at one point I brought up, I mean, if you're trying to get feedback, why are you asking us instead of the people that were in the group?
Sure. Yeah.
And then it came out that, well, he tried asking them all and they blocked him.
Huh. Which
makes me think if I've never blocked a DM that I had a good time playing with.
Sure.
You know what I mean? and anyway, well, we can get to more of that later. But the crux of this is, should you leave feedback for a group? I think, I'm pretty biased. I think both of us are pretty biased in that, like, I don't think you do need to. So, I mean, I don't think you have to.
Yeah.
If I'm not liking a game, I am probably just going to leave. But I think part of that comes from crippling social anxiety.
Sure.
And part of that comes from that, like, over the years I've learned, just because someone has a different play style than me, that doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong.
True.
Yes, I could tell them, hey, I have a different play style than you, and that, that means we're not a good fit. I feel like that would be less constructive than just leaving, because if I say that, then that's going to make them think, oh, well, I'll change my play style to more accommodate you. And that maybe that might be what I'm looking for, but probably not. If I'm leaving, it's not just over a difference in play style. It's that the difference in play style combined with a lack of enthusiasm about the game, combined with, the amount of time that it's eating up out of my schedule and so on.
Yeah.
Like, it's always a combination of things. So I don't want to make them think, hey, if you change this thing, I'll come back to the game.
Right.
Because I would never leave. I don't think I would ever leave just over a difference in play style.
Yeah.
I would probably try to accommodate, because, hey, someone else's play style might be fun.
Sure,
I'm not trying to say mine is the only good one, but I don't want to give them that hope that, it's like, okay, the relationship between a DM and players is a relationship, and it shares a lot of things in common with other relationships. If you're in a romantic relationship with someone and they break up with you, your initial reaction is probably going to be to try and be like, oh, well, I can change. Whatever it is that you need me to change, I can do this. If you were breaking up with someone, I mean, personally, I don't have a ton of experience breaking up with people, but I imagine if you're breaking up with someone and they say, oh, well, I can change this, I can change that, it's probably not a good idea to say, okay. It's probably a better idea to point out that, like, this isn't the only reason, and I'm not, this wasn't a snap decision. Like, this has been building, and I just want, you probably don't break up with someone unless you want something else. And staying with someone that you just broke up with probably isn't, I mean, I don't mean to be giving like relationship advice, but from my experience, I feel like if someone broke up with me, I would rather start anew and grow from what I've learned.
Is this an episode of Dinner Date Conflict?
So it's never a simple one single thing that caused whatever. Yeah, I mean, if it is, it's going to be pretty obvious that it's just one. It's because you spit in their face when you first met them or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, like if I am leaving a group, if I'm like putting myself out there as the guy who's leaving the group, it's not for something that can be easily fixed. Like if it was just one or two things, I would probably just put up with it.
Yeah. Or maybe say something.
Yeah.
If it is one simple thing, like, hey, these encounters have been really easy. Can we get some tougher encounters?
Sure, that's simple enough thing to ask, and they might be like, well, okay, yeah, I just didn't want to like kill all the characters or something like that, and then it's like, okay, that's understandable,
sure.
So, but they might throw in an extra hard monster every now and then.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's several things and it's like, well, it's just a conflicting play styles or conflicting personality or several other things, tied in there.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot to be done about it.
Right. And in a perfect world, you'd get feedback whenever a relationship, romantic or otherwise, ends. In a perfect world, if someone broke up with you, they would say, you did this right, you did this right, you did this wrong, you did this wrong.
Right.
I'm leaving because I'm going to find something that's more what I want.
Oh, and it should be like, you did this right, you did this wrong for me,
sure,
and not necessarily like this is the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah. But so
maybe sometimes there would be situations was like, no, don't do that at all. Why would you do that?
Right. So in a perfect world, you would get helpful feedback whenever a relationship ends.
You think what goes where?
Jeff.
Sorry.
But this isn't a perfect world. You don't get feedback nearly as often as would be helpful. People who buy a service almost never leave feedback, even though they are the people that would benefit the most from giving feedback. If I pay someone to come and clean my house or whatever, and they do a bad job, I'm probably just going to go somewhere else. I'm not always going to leave feedback, even though giving feedback and then giving them another chance might be very helpful. That's not what everybody does though. Like,
right.
So when it comes to a free service or like something that people feel that they are less invested in than something that you are paying lots of money for, then the chances of getting feedback are even less. So to expect feedback, because like this guy really wanted, he was like, why would they leave without telling me why they were leaving? And to expect that is unrealistic.
Yeah.
You're not going to get feedback even 10% of the time, I imagine.
Wait. I've made this same mistake before myself. It's just too clingy. It just
Could be.
just too clingy. If you ask too many times where it went wrong, they're gonna block you.
Yeah, absolutely. And
We're still talking about romantic relationships, right?
yeah, of course. Of course.
Okay.
And so, especially when it came out that his group blocked him,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, here's a good rule of thumb for whether you did a good job as a DM. If they kept playing in the game, you did a good job. If they don't, you probably didn't do a good job. If they blocked you afterwards, I guarantee you did a bad job.
Yeah, something went wrong somewhere.
It would be great if they told you did this, and this, and those were all bad ideas. That would be awesome of them. But I have never blocked someone that I was interested in communicating with.
Sure.
And the discussion on Facebook ended up coming down to, like, should you expect communication? And communication is great, but it only happens when people want to be communicating.
Yeah.
You cannot bully someone into communicating with you. And if you treat someone like you are expecting them to give you feedback and they don't think that way, that is a guaranteed way to make sure you do not get feedback.
Right. Yeah, we're not, I mean, like, you know, we ask for your guys' feedback, you know, for our show and stuff like that. Like, if you want to leave a review, you can. But
that would
like,
be great.
We're not expecting it.
No.
We are not, you know, badgering you guys with it all the time.
In fact, I like when I'm listening to podcasts where they mention it too much or they talk about donating to them too much, it kind of turns me off to it. So I try not to be too pushy. I try to just have a quick, you know, here's our Patreon.
Yeah.
Here's our Patreon at the very end of the episode. So I don't want to act like, hey, we've made you this podcast, so you better at least leave us a review.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying at all. If you like the podcast enough to leave a review, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But hey, I don't leave reviews for most of the podcasts I listen to.
Yeah.
You know, a podcast has to be either really good or really bad for me to like run to the computer and leave them a review.
Yeah. Like, yes, like so bad you had to say something about it.
Exactly.
Or, you know, so good that it had to be like, whoa, okay.
And also it's kind of the nature of feedback is that you probably, you are almost never going to get feedback for anything that's middle of the road. And you are more likely to get positive feedback than you are negative feedback, even though negative feedback is almost always more helpful. Long time ago. So I used to work for my mom.
Are you sure about that? I feel like negative feedback comes in more often. Like,
well,
have you seen online reviews and comments?
But I feel like everything that, unless it's real bad, then okay, maybe I'm wrong about that. But let me explain what I mean by that. So my mom passed away a few years ago, but she was a doctor for many years. I worked in her office, and there was one point where we hadn't gotten a lot of new patients in a long time. And so we put like a little suggestion box in the out in the waiting room, or like not just suggestions, but like you could like leave a review or whatever too. And as I was one of the people who like would go in and check those periodically, every single one of them was, "Hey, you guys are doing great. Don't change anything." And I realized like if we got a patient that didn't like the way we did things, they wouldn't come back. They wouldn't bother to tell us what we did wrong. They would just leave.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And while yes, negative feedback online is a huge thing, I feel very strongly that there is a much larger percentage of people that had negative feelings about it, but didn't feel strongly enough to leave reviews.
Sure.
So when you see a lot of negative feedback, it's because there was so many people, or it became like a meme to go and dump on them.
Just trolling or something like that.
Exactly. So I mean, like extenuating circumstances aside, I feel like in general.
So like the percentage of consumers that had a negative experience, the percentage of those that actually left a negative comment is lower than the percentage of people with positive experience giving a positive feedback.
I would say so.
Okay.
And
okay, I could see that.
So speaking of reviews and like positive versus negative, at the time of this recording, to sort of open the veil a little bit, we've gotten maybe like 12 reviews or something like that on iTunes.
That's actually more than I thought it was.
It's always more than I expect, but we haven't gotten a new review in a long time. Anyway,
sure.
All of our reviews, all of our ratings have been 5 stars.
Oh, thanks.
Well, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's not my point, but yes, absolutely. Thank you to everybody who has left us a rating, has left us a review.
This is hashtag humble brag.
I guess. But I guarantee there are more than 12 people that have felt negatively about our show.
Sure.
I know things about our show that I wish were better. I know things about our show that I think are flaws. I mean, I'm not going to leave a negative review for us or anything.
Don't tell anybody. Maybe they don't notice.
But like I said, I'm not going to leave a negative review unless a podcast does something real bad. And even when they do something real bad, I don't know if I've ever given an iTunes review lower than 3 stars because they're trying. At least they are making the effort, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I leave lots of 5-star reviews, even when I do have issues with things. And when I do, like, I'll usually say my issues in the review.
Right.
But
because like the stars themselves have more of, like, they mean more.
Yeah.
Because they're a rating on a website and they help get like exposure and stuff like that. So when you give somebody a 4-star review because of this one little thing, and they didn't give you options for half stars or whatever, so you have to do either 4 or 5. It's like, well, it's not perfect, so it can't be a 5, so it must be a 4. But when you give them a 4-star review, that brings down their average, and then their exposure gets less, and then they get less, traffic, and like it's like a downward spiral from there. So it's like if it's just a little thing you have a problem with, give the 5-star, and then in your actual text review say, hey, there was this one thing, but everything else is great.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess this is all to say, like, feedback is great when it happens, but you cannot count on it. If you are unable to grow except when getting feedback, something has gone wrong. Like, then that is a very bad sign for you. You have to be able to recognize your own flaws, even if it is just, hey, after this game, nobody came back. Let me try and make my next game as different from the last game as possible. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that you, as a DM, you want to be able to know what you did good and know what you did bad so that you can do more of the good in the future and less of the bad in the future. But it is unrealistic. Whether it is reasonable or not, it is unrealistic for you to expect feedback all the time.
Yeah.
Or even some of the time. Here's just a rule of thumb. Don't expect feedback. I mean, just use the gauge of whether people keep coming back or not. If you get feedback, that's great. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
You should say thank you. You should use that feedback to the best of your ability. But if someone blocks you, take that as the strongest negative feedback you can.
Right, yeah.
Because they gave you feedback. They blocked you.
Yeah, that is a 1-star review with no text. You're just like,
exactly.
Well, okay.
Exactly.
So I gotta take stock of everything here.
Right. So it is great when players communicate with you. It's great when that happens, but you are not entitled to it, and it's probably rarely going to happen.
Yep. And all negative reviews of this podcast can go to InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, like, I don't want negative feedback,
right?
But I would love some negative. I don't even know if I want to say that. Okay.
Don't entice them.
I don't want negative feedback, but we've never gotten negative feedback, and that worries me because then that makes me feel like whenever someone has an issue with the podcast, they just stop listening.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that there are things that we could be improving on. So anyway,
there was a time I looked at the number of subscribers for FriendQuest, and it went down by 1. And I was like,
oh,
who just does that?
Yeah.
Who unsubscribes from a YouTube page, from a YouTube channel?
I don't know.
Who does that? Like,
and like we've had, not that we have a ton of patrons, but like we've had a couple patrons over the last year that have canceled their subscription.
But I mean, like that's a subscription thing. That
sure.
There are many reasons why you'd stop that.
Yeah.
Like our rewards aren't worth the money, which is understandable. Like if for you that's not.
Sure.
Enough incentive.
What I'm trying to say is that I'm pretty sure when you unsubscribe from a Patreon, I think it asks you if you want to send feedback.
Right.
And I don't think we've ever gotten feedback from something like that.
I mean, I always click out of those whenever I am leaving. Like, if I'm ending a subscription to World of Warcraft, like they know why.
Sure.
They know why.
Yeah. So I mean, it could be that the patrons that we have lost have either just left for monetary reasons, or it could be that they, it wasn't, maybe they do have negative feedback. They just don't feel like giving it.
Sure.
And either one of those, hey, I have no say over which of those we get. So I can't say one is good or one is bad. Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
If people leave your group for whatever reason, that is entirely their prerogative. And you should just use that as an example to say, okay, well, even if you're already doing your best, you should be doing better. Like, even if you did everything you thought you were supposed to do, keep trying.
Yeah, for sure.
Never stop improving because you haven't gotten any negative feedback.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that's really all I have to say about this. I don't mean to be an expert on, like relationships or anything like that, but you can't expect feedback from everybody.
Yeah. Gabe is the Dr. Phil of D&D.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I don't know.
Anyway.
Our next question comes from Blubsternchen on Discord.
Yes.
How can I make my PCs feel the danger of being overwhelmed in an onslaught of foes without feeling like an accountant for managing so many enemies at the same time?
Yeah.
So like hordes of enemies, and it's like this big epic battle, and the players are feeling overwhelmed, but so are you, because you got all these like monsters to manage.
Right. I would say the quick answer for this is that the majority of this is going to be in flavor text, or like how you describe things, and not actually mechanics. Because if you just have a whole bunch of enemies, it's going to be a lot of work keeping, with your number crunching machine, keeping track of like whose turn is it, and all these guys go on initiative 12, and so on and so on.
The first idea that came to mind when I saw this question was, it might be interesting to try and like find a way to do like sort of like a swarm mechanic sort of thing. So like you have like, you start off with like 3 to 5 orcs. Yeah. And then like suddenly like there's like a few more come in. And so like you have, but you're up to like 15 orcs, and you don't want to be rolling 15 initiatives and rolling 15 attacks. So maybe you have 3 groups of 5 orcs. So you kind of you pool their, you would pool like their hit points together, but maybe their like AC would go down a little bit because there's more of them, so you have a chance to hit somebody. You're
just swinging into that cloud of orcs over there.
Right, yeah. So like, they have like a bigger pool of hit points, but they have either a little easier hit because you're going to hit somebody. Yeah. And then like, they maybe get like multi-attack or something at a point. So it's like, okay, like there's 5 of them, so maybe instead of there being 5 attacks, there's multi-attack of like maybe there's like 3 attacks, and then like the more you're adding, the higher the chance is that one of them is going to be able to hit you. So you just give them a higher attack rating or something like that. So like there's a slow buildup of like every round the things that they're fighting are getting stronger and stronger, but if they can like knock back, if they can do enough damage, they can kind of keep them from getting stronger, or they can realize, oh, this is futile, like let's run.
Yeah. I think that's a neat mechanic, and I think that would be interesting to try and work with and try to perfect it.
Yeah.
Probably the part of that I think is going to make the players feel quote unquote overwhelmed. I'm saying quote unquote overwhelmed because you don't actually want the players to be overwhelmed, but you want them to feel that they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so if you can use a mechanic like that to make it so that every time the players feel like they're making progress, they realize that they are not making progress fast enough.
Sure.
So if it were something sort of like a Hydra, because the Hydra in Greek mythology, or one of the Hydras in Greek mythology or something, every time you cut off one head, it grew 2 more. If it were similarly that every time the players kill one orc, 2 more orcs show up, or mechanically, like what you were saying, every time you kill one orc, there's now a like quote unquote swarm of 2 more orcs or something. Or like if there is you're describing it as a swarm of 3 orcs and you kill one, now there are 4 orcs. And then they kill another one, now there's 5 orcs or whatever. If you can do that, like that type of thing is what you're looking for. Every round, there should be a bigger threat than there was the previous round. And so if the goal is to make the players run away or something, I think that is a worthwhile goal for this type of thing, then yeah, you want the players to feel like whatever progress they made last round not only didn't get them any closer to their goal, they need to make more progress than they did last round in order to get closer to their goal. So like, it's, they killed 1, but there's 2 more. They killed 2, now there's 3 more, and so on.
Yeah, because I'm picturing, like some, like a few groups of orcs or whatever, and then like they're streaming in from some entranceway or something like that.
Yeah.
So like, each group is building in strength, the longer it goes. Also, unless you can be doing enough damage to it to keep it from getting out of hand, it's going to get stronger. Or you can spend the time to stop the flow of orcs in some way, like maybe there's a way to barricade the door so they can't get any stronger, and it gives you more time to deal with the ones that are there. Maybe you can't stop them forever, so like you have to you put down a barricade, but it only lasts for 3 rounds, and so you have 3 rounds to whittle down the orcs that are there before the next flow comes.
Ooh, that's good. So like there is a little mini time limit, and they know that when that time limit ends, something bad is going to happen.
Right. Here's
a similar idea. So the player, I don't know what exact scenario this is in, but if the players are in like a room and there's a doorway like you were saying, and they know, okay, orcs are going to be coming through here, so they block that up, and then 2 rounds after they block that up, a wall breaks down and now there's another flow of orcs coming in. Mechanically, it's the same flow of orcs as there would have been from the first one, but now they have to hold that one and deal with the second one. If they plug up that second one, a third one on the other side of the room is going to break open, and so on. So again, you just want to make the players feel like they're making negative progress.
Right, yeah. Like every step they take to stop the orcs, it like, a couple rounds later, it's like, okay, now there's another one. And so like we have to make sure that the 2 that we're blocking up are still blocked. But now we got this third one to worry about. And so it's like, it's like this overwhelming odds. I think that's a good way to go about it.
And you can try to just like flavor it like, oh, you're only fighting these 4 orcs, but you're surrounded by like a cheering crowd of orcs. You can do that, but that to an extent, I think that strains credibility, because then it's like, well, why don't all of them just attack us?
Right. It's the whole like, why is it always in movies that when the good guy is surrounded by a bunch of bad guys, they only come and attack him one at a time?
Exactly.
It's like so they could do the special karate moves.
Right. So so that isn't necessarily the greatest way to deal with it. However, if you do want to still do that, maybe thematically the players are surrounded by orcs and they're being attacked by like their champion or whatever, have the ones on the outside participate in the battle in the form of lair actions. Let's say the champion goes to fight the players. While they're fighting him, every round on initiative 20, 3 random players are targeted by range attacks by the surrounding bad guys.
They're like chucking javelins or something like that.
Yeah. Or if you are doing like they're in a room and there's guys trying to burst in through the door, if you think about the logistics of the scene, eventually there's going to be so many orcs standing in that doorway. They're just standing there. They can't do anything. They might start chucking weapons through the doorway. Throwing weapons over the heads of the people in front of them. So then you could have it be that, you're blocking up that wall so no more orcs can get through, but every round some javelins get thrown in or whatever. You can try things like that. You can get a little bit of mileage out of good description. Maybe stat-wise it's only 1 orc, but description-wise, it's 2 orcs. I don't know. And so when they kill them, you killed both of them in one, whatever. You can try reskinning stuff or just like describing the environment, but that's only going to go so far. And you are going to have to do something mechanical to, to really make the players feel overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Another solution here, and I'll say this was inspired by something Jeff was talking about with me, that skill challenges in the middle of combat. You could have it be that maybe a player gets mobbed by a whole bunch of orcs, and rather than just have it be combat, you could have it be that while this fight's going on, that player, instead of rolling to attack and get attacked against his AC or whatever, you could have that player roll like an athletics check, or he gets pinned by a bunch of orcs. And then if he fails it, then next round he takes a whole bunch of damage because they're all just like pounding into him on the ground or whatever. You can try to use that sort of a mechanic, try to like have like maybe even just take it out of combat rounds and say, at this point, you guys have to succeed on this many strength checks in order to succeed, or if you fail too many strength checks, everybody dies, or everybody gets taken prisoner,
Right.
or whatever. That might be a little bit jarring because you're going from like an intense combat to a very abstracted skill-based thing.
Yeah.
But with good enough setup and with good enough resolution, good enough description, you could set it up that way. It could be like the wall gets broken down, 100 orcs charge into the room. Okay, guys, we're going to jump out of rounds now. They are about to kill you unless you can succeed on enough athletics checks or whatever.
Yeah. It'd be like an alternating initiative where, like you have a round of combat and then a round of skill challenges.
Yeah.
So like, it's like a round of combat. At the end of that round of combat, you notice that the one of the doors is bursting. Like is being pummeled with like a ram or something like that.
Yeah.
So like you're like, okay, so you have a round of skill checks, what's something that you can do? I was like, I'm gonna chuck this boulder over at the door to kind of block it a bit or something like that.
Sure.
Like, I'm gonna ram into it and try to hold it or something like that.
Or like I'm gonna cast Wall of Force and it's gonna block off the bad guys. Maybe they can get around it, but for the time being, and then the DMs has you roll a spellcasting modifier check, and then if you succeed, then you're able to position it well enough that they can't get through the wall they were getting through, and now they have to find another way around.
And so for that next round of combat, you don't have to deal with those guys. You just have to deal with what's left in the room.
Sure.
So
try that. So I think that's a good idea. Try to incorporate some skill challenges into the battle, and try to use the description of those skill challenges to really paint the environment the way that you want it to be pictured. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to do. But I think there's a few different ways to really make it memorable at the very least.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our discussion questions for this week. We also have our social media question, though.
Oh, yeah?
Last week's social media question was, what is your favorite piece of music that gets you pumped for a tabletop game? Do you recall what your answer was, Jeff?
I don't remember. Did I say? Well, I think I just like I usually do like any sort of like video game or like dramatic movie soundtrack or something like that.
I think you called out specifically the Eberron soundtrack. The
I remember that.
Cut to the Chase, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't finished editing that episode yet, so I don't know what I put in the show notes. But I think I
haven't listened to it in a long time, but I do remember like that was our like
it was a good soundtrack.
Yeah, that was our we're getting ready to play a game, guys. Let's do this.
And then I've got Dawn of Victory by Rhapsody is like a I don't know what kind of metal it is, but like some sort of metal song that I think is really good and really feels like a D&D scenario. So we got a few comments, and I'm going to try to include all of these in the show notes as links. So check the show notes, interpartyconflict.com. I'll try to have those all on this week's episode. So Sean M on Facebook says, I don't play war games, only fantasy, yet the Hell March from Command & Conquer is great.
Ooh.
So there's that one. Dan W says, Dominion Port by Celestial Aeon Project. It's the theme to our campaign, some classy fantasy instrumental in there mixed with a swashbuckling theme, perfect as we start in Luskin.
Yeah. The Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack is a good.
It's
a nice, fun. It's very swashbuckling.
A bit of a tangent, but I'll mention it in case any of our listeners want to look this up. Have you ever heard the Michael Bolton Captain Jack Sparrow song?
Yes.
I heard that song in one of Adventures in Aurelia's outtakes. They were listening to it.
Oh, yeah?
And ever since that day, I can't go 2 days without listening to it. It is, and when I say listening to it, I mean listening to it like 5 times in a row. It is so good. So check that out. It is not at all the answer to this question.
That's the Lonely Island.
Lonely Island, yeah. They get Michael Bolton to help them, and he just got done watching a Pirates of the Caribbean marathon. Yeah. So it's so good. All right, over on Reddit, Not a Wizard Lizard says, don't know about favorite, but we had a session once where we played the first gen Pokemon theme while we fought a Hydra. That was a very hectic fight. Okay.
Wait, which theme? Are you talking a show theme? I'm assuming it's like the gym leader theme from the first generation, or maybe it's just a regular trainer battle, or is it a wild Pokemon battle, or is it a Team Rocket battle theme?
Dang, Jeff, I don't know.
There are so many themes that it could be.
Yeah, I was picturing just normal Pokemon battle, but
all of them good choices.
All of them good choices. Yeah.
I feel the gym leader one is pretty good.
Okay.
And then there's also, I think, like when you fight Gary for the last time, I think there's a special theme for that too. So there's a lot of good ones to choose from. Yeah. So pick any of them really.
All right. And then also on Reddit, Gizmo Trunks says the Shire music from Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess it's not necessarily what gets you like excited for battle,
sure.
But just for a tabletop game. And hey, the Shire music would be, fine for depending on what game you're in. Over on Discord, Oh That's Sketchy says hard to pick any one piece of music, but I have a go-to folk metal playlist that usually does the job. It features music by groups such as Falconer, Gloryhammer, Van Cant, Elven King, and Powerwolf.
Ooh.
Then Avonshill says, this last year was my first year DMing, and a song I heard early on that got me pumped was Legends Never Die by Against the Current. So again, I'll be trying to include all of these in the show notes.
Yeah.
Adam B says, I have 2 very precise pieces of music I play just before we start, depending on the current situation. It instantly informs the players we have begun and the type of session to expect to be starting with. The first is 2 Steps from Hell from To Glory. And the second is For Blood, For Glory, and For Honor by Jeremy Soule. This is the opening song for Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, cool.
So there you go.
Yeah, a lot of Elder Scrolls stuff is really good too. Yeah. And that's a good idea, like using the music to kind of cue up, like, hey, we're going to be like getting people like corralled a little bit. It's like one of my old middle school teachers would do that, like at the beginning of class. Mm-hmm. Like there was a song she would play, and like during that song, it like you had to like get seated, get all your stuff out, and then she'd have like a question up on the board to have that answered by the end of the song, and then that would start the class.
That's pretty good.
I ended up hating that song.
Sure. Peace Joy Pancakes asks, is that a common thing people have? I don't have anything specific I go to necessarily, but I would lean towards a folk rock approach similar to Oh That's Sketchy's, but the German variant with Schandmal, In Extremo, Fawn, etc. I hope I pronounced those right. But mostly I just listen to RPG-related podcasts, either you guys, obviously, or Actual Play, your Critical Roles and Adventure Zones, and my beloved How Friends Roll, which is another one.
Cool.
And then finally over on Twitter, we got 2. I Am Carlos. He said, my favorite movie is Master and Commander. I love the soundtrack. Lots of drums and strings. And then Collins B says, the D&D Beyond theme song. So yeah, I was not aware there was a D&D Beyond theme song, but apparently it has a video on YouTube that is like looks like an 80s cartoon.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty cool. So those are our answers for last week's social media question. And this week's social media question, out of all the dice used in tabletop gaming, which is your favorite and why?
Ooh.
How about you, Jeff? Got all of them.
Yeah, you got them all
right here in front of you.
You got them all right there.
Whichever ones you don't pick will feel guilty. They will feel left out. So,
I feel like I like the D12.
Mm-hmm.
I like the shape of it.
Yeah.
Like it's nice and round, but it's got nice long edges and stuff like that. I like as far it's just shape.
Yeah.
And like look alone, I like the D12.
Sure.
Aesthetically. Mechanically, I think I like the D8 because that usually means I'm getting healed.
Okay, that's good.
D20s and me have a love-hate relationship.
Sure.
And then and the other ones are good too. I'm not gonna knock any of the other ones, but like the D12 I feel like doesn't get a lot of use, but it is a pretty looking shape.
Yeah.
So like it's like the really like good looking person you put at the front door.
Okay.
It's like an Abercrombie and Fitch, like just like a guy in a tight T-shirt, and he's just like, hey, welcome to D&D. You're gonna roll these other dice, but here, just check out my abs.
Yeah. I would probably say the D12 is also my favorite. It gets used the least.
Yeah.
But I think it's neat. I think that like it's got a good spread of numbers on there. Mm-hmm. Rolling a 12 on something would be pretty cool. On a D20, less cool because there are so many higher numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the shape of it. I have a few of them that are. I have a few D12s that look really nice. Like I have one where half the numbers are one color, the other half are another color.
Sure.
I think that's a really neat little touch. I've also got ones that like the edges are really rounded, and so it's like really like inviting to look at and pick up. I don't know. But then I also have ones that are like sharp edges, and that's really cool too.
Yeah.
So I think D12 probably. D4 is also pretty cool because, hey, you got a 25% chance to get the highest number possible. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
do you prefer sharper edges or rounded edges?
I mean, it depends. I don't know.
I'd rather have sharper edges.
Yeah.
Not like super sharp.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is slightly round. Like this D20, I think is a slightly rounder edges than the D20 I normally use.
Yeah.
That being said, there are some that it's like sharp enough to where like you can almost chip away at it.
Sure. I would say it probably depends on the die. I would love a D20 that was super sharp. I don't think I've ever seen one that was like super sharp. Yeah. But like I have a couple D12s that are like a clear green plastic.
Yeah, no, yeah.
And those ones, like the edges are like really sharp. Yeah. It's almost like they forgot to polish it or something.
Right. Yeah.
But if I had a D20 like that, I think that'd be really cool to use. But I don't know. Anyway, so
we could talk about dice all day,
I guess. So anyway, I don't think there's no right or wrong answer. We're just curious what your opinions are. So
I mean, obviously there's a right answer. We both have it.
We have an answer that is right for us.
Yeah. But that's 2 for 2 right there. Like, 2 for 2, 2 out of 2 people who have answered this question have picked the D12.
All right.
Right now, that is the right answer,
I guess. So anyway, now that we finished with our questions for the week, let's wind down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Let's take a deep breath. Let's sit back. Let's relax. Let's remember those that have come before us and died so that we may have a better world to live in as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. So this one was submitted by Stranger371 on Reddit. The story goes as follows. Got turned to stone. Bit by bit, the GM gave me a lot of rolls because he was scared to kill me. I failed all of them.
Oh,
I deserved that death. So let's raise a glass in honor of the player that scared the GM to death. Clink. All right, that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/interpartyconflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games.
Yes. Check out my side project, the Arcade Memories podcast. If you'd like to submit your own childhood memories of going to the arcade, record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hackers RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
give us your feedback. We can take it.
There you go.